So finally, The Chosen is back, showing us some behind the scenes of season 5. Of course, they took a long break as the episodes were airing for the last month, but now they're back at it again, showing us some really unique pieces of the behind the scenes, including a massive explosion. So this is the last week in Utah. So this is about a month and a half-ish ago, something like that. And so let's check it out. Here we go.
3, 2, 1.
Just another Jesus show.
The master released the servant and forgave the debt.
This week, we get to meet a familiar face.
One of our disciples gets to preach. We'll see how that goes.
And since he could not pay, the master ordered his children sold, him and his wife to be sold.
So within The Chosen so far, all the behind the scenes of season 5, we've seen a lot of scenes like this, where we see Peter is preaching, and he's talking about different things, and we're not really sure what he's talking about. This scene in particular, he's kind of silent. He's just getting his movements for the camera. However, we've seen a lot of these moments where he's preaching. Now, this one in particular that they're talking about from Utah is, I think, an earlier part of the progression. I think this is going to be a little bit later on. I think a storyline that we're going to see from Peter in particular, whether this is in one episode or whether this is over the course of the entire season, is that he is going to start learning how to preach much better than he had before. And so we're going to see him start out pretty rough in his preaching, and then he's going to get better and better and better throughout the season, is my guess. This is going to be really important. Why? Because Peter is one of the best preachers of the apostles, and he is the one that preaches during Acts. He is the one that preaches during a lot of these different scenarios, because he needs to be the one that teaches in a lot of these different scenarios, right? So obviously we need to see some of that progression, that character growth, as we've seen Peter grow a ton in the last 4 seasons. Now in season 5, we're going to see him grow within himself and in his skill set, coming from being a fisherman to becoming a preacher. And so that's going to be really, really interesting to see. Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
One of the most unexpectedly funny scenes of the show.
Have patience with me and I will pay you everything.
Peter's trying to preach, and it's coming out like a bad stand-up comedy night open mic.
That's really funny. So it's going to be interesting to see, because most of the time whenever Jesus preaches, we see people really over the top, like want to know more, right? But what happens when they're not as interested, or the delivery of what's being said, even if what's being said is the truth, what if the delivery of it is not as good? That's a good question to ask.
Half day's wages.
Oh, we're throwing hype. We're making sure the words are there, making sure it all goes as smoothly as possible.
So we saw in the background of some of the behind the scenes before of this scene, we saw as Peter's preaching and Andrew is trying to give him the words, like reminding him what the story is, reminding him what the parable is, reminding him what he's supposed to be saying. And so Andrew's trying to help him get through this situation, but it's pretty bad.
The master ordered his children sold.
Feels like, just a proud baby boy watching my big bro do it. It's very fun.
Awesome. Cut. Great.
It should be pretty funny. I'm excited to see that. Now here we have Zebedee and this guy that I always forget his name, but it's in this episode, so we'll learn it now.
Oh, I see you, Zebedee.
No, he's not here. You can't see me. I am not here.
So here we've got some scenes at the temple. We see a bunch of different Jewish people here, but this is about the scene that basically is like 16 minutes long. It's a very, very long scene that they shot in the last kind of week of Utah here.
How are we diving deeper into the religious politics?
There's Caiaphas and Gadara, and we see Zebedee and the other one that I forget his name all the time.
And getting really to know you guys better.
We are defending the law of Moses.
The important thing to remember is that we're...
So there's Shmuel is there as well. So his name is Ozem. I always forget his name. I don't know if we've ever been told his name in the actual show. Without subtitles anyway. But Ozem. Ozem is his name. Ozem. Ozem. O-Z-E-M. Ozem. Ethan Flower. Got it. Ozem.
Religious politics.
I'm 100% going to forget that, by the way.
I consider myself an ancient lawyer,
I feel like we're starting to see the kind of the dysfunction within the Sanhedrin and how that affects the people, how the people are frustrated by that. They're not thrilled with how these religious leaders are tapped.
So this is the big massive scene that we saw before. This is what we're theorizing could potentially be the woman with the issue, not the woman with the issue above, the adulterous woman. It potentially could be that. We know that the adulterous woman happens within the temple. We know that there's a bunch of different things that happen here. We also see the apostles there in the far left corner of this shot. I don't know. There's some interesting things. Matthew is standing on one of the pillars trying to write down this different stuff. So it could be from the book of Matthew in particular. It's hard to say.
Tackling these issues.
There's questions of, what is this man proposing? Will we not be rabbis anymore?
Jesus basically threatens my way of life.
In the sense that he is gonna unveil what we really are.
We're always jockeying for power, and so he threatens what we've built.
Yep. Again, this goes back to our connection points between Caiaphas and Rome, right? Why is that so important? It's important because Caiaphas wants to stay in power. And the same thing with the Pharisees. They want to stay in power as well. They want the status quo to be upheld and for their lives to continue on as the way that they want it to be. This is a really, really big thing for them.
Background.
Caiaphas lives in a world of politics. He is a high priest.
So there's Richard Fancy. We talked about him before. This is who Caiaphas is. There's a lot of different outfits that he's actually wearing this season, which is pretty cool. I talked about that previously in a video before. I actually got this wrong because I had some assumptions that I was leaning on that weren't correct. And so we see him in his high priestly garb, in his normal kind of Pharisaical garb. And we also see him in kind of more house clothes a little bit later on.
And he takes that very seriously.
So right there, we see him in his high priestly garb. This is what we talked about last week that I got wrong. We never got a close-up shot like this until now. And so I had it wrong thinking that he was someone else. I had an assumption in place that kind of ruined my thinking. So anyway, this is Caiaphas here in his garb for the holiday, essentially. We don't know exactly when the high priest would have worn these vestments, other than special days, holidays, things like that. So the Passover would probably qualify for it here.
Seriously, he is dealing with the Sanhedrin, who are all individual people with their individual needs and drives, and he's trying to control things. But the problem is he doesn't really know how to control this, so it's always changing. And part of it is because he's trying to figure out how to manage this guy from Galilee, and which he feels imperils all the Jews, because what will happen is the Romans will find out what a revolutionary Jesus is, and they will crack down on all of us.
Yeah. The position Caiaphas is in is really interesting. I'm really looking forward to the character development for Caiaphas specifically in this season. I think that almost more than anybody else, he's going to have a really important role this season in how he interacts with people, how he interacts with Pilate, how he interacts with the apostles and Jesus, how he interacts with everybody, right? And what he tells the Pharisees to do in turn. Obviously, it's a huge part of why Jesus is killed in the first place. So there's a lot of it here that's really, really important.
Nick, tell us about the scene that you are in right now.
It's about time that Zebedee played with the big boys in the oil business.
Come on.
This is quite interesting. I don't know if we'll ever get to it in the round tables, but in the round tables, they actually talk about how this would never happen. Zebedee would have to be a priest in order to give oil to the temple. It would never be the case for Zebedee to have oil that he would sell to the temple just as like a random vendor. In the temple specifically, the priests would be the ones who would make the oil per spec, make sure that it's perfect, and never have an issue, basically. So this is a little bit weird, this storyline with Zebedee, but of course they're trying to give Zebedee a position within the seasons moving forward where he normally wouldn't be mentioned pretty much at all, right? Throughout the rest of the Gospels. So here, I think what's going to happen with the explosion that we're about to see is that the oil is destroyed within the temple. Something destroys all the oil in the temple. And so then Zebedee comes with his oil and replenishes it and is able to sell his oil or give his oil to the temple itself and allow them to use it for the holy sacraments and everything else that they're going to use it for. So it just so happens that he brought all this oil with him and that he's able to make it or whatever else. And so interesting storyline. I'm not sure how important it is other than just to keep Zebedee around, which is cool. I love Nick. He's awesome, but we'll see how the storyline kind of plays out if I'm correct about that.
On.
He's going to the temple and have his oil tested to see if it.
So there's John. He's pulling that cart. Now, we've talked about this guy to the left several times now. This is, I believe, this servant of the high priest that gets close to John, essentially, and allows him to be part of the court that is later on, obviously, with the crucifixion of Jesus and everything else. This is a guy that's going to be setting up a storyline for later. Whenever Jesus is brought to Caiaphas' house, he's brought in front of Annas and Caiaphas and all of that kind of stuff. So this guy is going to be important, I think, in the red there. He's wearing a blue coat because it's cold, but normally he'd be wearing a red clothing that's kind of underneath that, obviously. But here we're seeing the scene when they either first meet or they're meeting about this oil or something else is happening here. But seems quite interesting. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting storyline to kind of dive into scripturally as well.
Meets purification standards, so he comes to the temple with his son John.
You never know what's going to happen here on set. And this week, we got to see something a little different.
Pretty epic. So, like I said, I think this explosion is the oil being destroyed, and there's a few reasons why I think that. One is because this area is in the court of women. Within the court of women, you can see a couple of different things that are really important. First things first are these right here. These are offering boxes. So think about in your church on Sunday morning, maybe your church has offering boxes that you can go and place money in, okay? That's what these are. That's what the Pharisees would drop their money into and make sure that it had a loud clang so that everybody knew they were giving money, okay? Each one of these boxes are for different things. So this may be for flour, and this may be for oil, and this may be for whatever, this may be for whatever. So there's different boxes for different tithing, basically, for different money and different things like that. This room right here, I believe, is the room to the right of the Holy of Holies. Essentially, if you go straight to the left over here up these stairs, you would go into the Holy of Holies. This room over here is the oil room where they held all the oil, I believe. And so this would make perfect sense that the oil is being destroyed. There's some sort of explosion where the oil goes up in flames and it destroys everything. And then they need to replace that oil somehow. And so this is not a scriptural thing. Again, I think it's just a way to have Zebedee kind of come into who he is as the oil guy, right? Maybe this is also their into the Garden of Gethsemane because he needs olive oils he needs olives in order to make more olive oil. And so maybe they give him access to the Mount of Olives, which is right outside the temple, essentially. So that makes a lot of sense to me, that potentially that's how they get access to the Garden of Gethsemane, is that they are using it, Zebedee is using it as a place of work right now while he's here for Passover, helping the temple make oil. That makes sense to me. So, yeah.
Boom! Are you okay? Were you impressed?
That's Dallas's son, if you don't know, Sam Jenkins.
Impressed by that explosion?
Yeah, it's fine.
Dallas is so snarky, dude. He's so sarcastic.
Just another Jesus show.
That's what he posted on Instagram as well. Just another Jesus show. So now we see the disciples here. I love this fit that Jesus has on. We've seen this a couple of different times now. It's kind of like a white cloak with a hood. And sometimes he has that hood up. Sometimes he has that hood down. But I do love that fit that he has.
We are quickly moving into our
Again, Caiaphas there and his boys.
final week of filming here in Utah. But you haven't seen
Really, really cool stuff. Let's head over to the app now. Hey, really quick, if you enjoy our channel and you want to see more videos just like this, The best way to help support us beyond just watching these videos, thank you by the way, is by going to snipesupport.com. This is a place where you can offer $5, $10, or $25 a month, and it really helps us to have a more stable environment here on YouTube. It can be really hard sometimes, months being up and down, revenue being all over the place, because advertisers are really fickle. And what happens if a political advertiser decides to be on our channel, or if someone who doesn't like Christianity doesn't want to be on our channel because of what we talk about? There's a lot of different things that I can't control with that. And so Patreon really helps us to have a stable environment. Thank you to all of our people that are on Patreon now. And if you do want to join, there's a link down in the description down below, or you can just go to snipesupport.com. Anyway, let's get back to the video. This one's really interesting. We're meeting Danny, who has been around for quite some time on the Chosen set and is now kind of in charge of First Team, which is all of the main actors of the show. So that's what we're going to talk about here. I've met her several times now. She's always running around doing something, very, very busy. And a lot of people seem to be just slightly scared of her, which is probably a good thing, seeing as she's like trying to hurt everybody. And so really, really cool story about how she comes to be part of the team. I did not know most of this about her, so really, really cool stuff here. Let's check it out.
So we have a video right here on the app where you can see how Mitch Hudson takes care of all of our amazing background, making sure they're where they need to be, right when they need to be there.
Yes, but who takes care of our main cast? Danny Taylor, our additional second AD. She and her incredible team work a lot harder than you might think.
All right, First Team!
Yep, so cool stuff. Danny's awesome. Let's meet her team first, basically.
We actually own the production office. So typically we're the first ones here, the last ones to leave. These are all the distro for the morning, so it's sides and call sheets. It's 6:20 right now. Here's Danny for breakfast. Can I get you a breakfast order?
I'll have a line special today.
Okay, copy that.
So right now, all of cast are landing, and Lance and I both are just kind of collecting breakfast orders.
You take the breakfast order. Breakfast order makes its way to you.
Yeah, I put it into a shared note of all of my breakfast orders.
So these are the things we don't think about when we're not on set, right? Like, how do the actors get breakfast? How do they get water? How do they get anything that they need, right? It's not like they're just going to be walking around set searching for it themselves. There's going to be a team that's going to get it for them, right? These are actual actors who are sitting in their trailer, getting ready, going over lines, getting makeup and wardrobe done, right? There's a lot of moving parts to this that I think we never see as Chosen fans.
Orders that then Rebecca and my additionals can see, so we can get them on time. Hopefully they all have time to eat, either before or after hair and makeup.
Filet and lobster, please.
Okay, yeah. Anything else that I can actually get?
Yeah, sure.
I've got my list.
So I went through every frame of this trying to look for any secrets. Unfortunately, there's not really any. However, I will say that it's quite funny through this phone list that she has here. Basically, she has all of the call times for every actor that's supposed to be on set, and they're called by their character names, not by their actor real names, right? And so in here we have like Jesus, we've got Judas, we have Thaddeus, we've got Peter, we've got Shmuel, we've got a bunch of different people. But I thought it was really, really interesting because I was really hoping to find like a new character or a new name. However, on this list even, she has in the third section here, I don't know if you can see, but right here, she hasn't gotten the breakfast order yet, but that says the Watcher. So the Watcher, who we've been watching from behind the scenes and seeing him from episode 7 of season 4 all the way through the behind the scenes of season 5, he showed up quite a bit. And apparently on this day when they filmed, he was here as well. So the Watcher is here somewhere doing something on this day of filming. We don't know what, we don't know why, but he was here during this day. And the interesting part of that for me is that he doesn't have a name even for the production. So his name is the Watcher within the production as well, which is really interesting to me because it shows that they are trying to hide his identity even beyond just us, right? Even beyond the outsiders. Even most of the insiders maybe don't know his identity, or they're just trying to be very, very cautious and use that name when they talk about him whenever they do.
Of all of my actors and their call times, and then hair and makeup and costumes also have to grab their breakfast.
What about my breakfast?
Your breakfast? You can get it yourself.
I'm Rebecca. I'm the
I feel like Danny is just as snarky as Dallas is.
first team PA, and very soon we will be inviting first team down to set.
Now, we saw a lot of Rebecca during season 4 background, in particular, season 4 behind the scenes. She was a really good friend of Jelaine, and so Jelaine always posted about Rebecca over and over and over again. And in fact, Rebecca is... she's posted a lot about the behind the scenes and different things like that for season 4 specifically. And we got a lot of information from her, nothing that was like super spoiler or anything, but everything from behind the scenes when they were filming and doing different things as well. And so she's one of those people that we always would watch stuff from and see the updates from for sure, but not as much this time around.
This is our flow chart. This is kind of like what tells us who needs to be in hair when and who needs to be in makeup when. So Lance just went to invite Alessandro. Let's see, it's 6:48. Alessandro's due for makeup.
Morning.
Ready to head down for rehearsal.
You ready? All right.
So we're heading to set. Basically every morning while cast is getting ready, we want to make sure that on set we have their cast tent set up. Got to fit 24 cast in here.
So the cast is in here right now. In this shot, we see what looks to be Thaddeus, Barnaby. We see Andrew and John. We see Jairus. And obviously we saw Yanni earlier. I'm sure there's a bunch more in there.
We got almost 24 actors in the tent right now. We controlled chaos.
Harry, it's you that has to go on. I know it.
This is something I cut out of my behind the scenes earlier on, but it was funny.
Not me, not Hermione, you.
My favorite part is getting to know 23 different personalities, like, because they're all so wonderful in their own little ways, and I just love working with everyone.
Danny, how do you know Mitch?
So I met him on a set in Atlanta. I was asked to work on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They had really big background days, so they just needed additional production assistants.
And my job while I was
Really, really interesting. So she worked on Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as a production assistant.
there was to manage 100 to 200 kids. And so I was looking around trying to find some help. I was trying to organize all on my own. And a PA comes up to me and she was like, "Hey, can I help you?"
Before he even said yes or anything, he looks at my hoodie.
That says Binge Jesus. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, bring it in.
Really interesting. So this is a chance meeting that they met on the set of Guardians of the Galaxy. Really, really cool stuff.
And it immediately gives me a big hug, and it's like...
Second of all, yes, I could use your help. Let's do it.
The friendship begins.
Yeah.
And she was saying, I'm actually moving out to Texas in the hopes of meeting someone and trying to get a job on the set of The Chosen.
That's crazy, dude. So she moved out to Texas just so that she could maybe have a job with The Chosen before having a job lined up at all. That's pretty crazy. And she just happened to meet Mitch on set on Guardians of the Galaxy, a completely different thing entirely. That's nuts.
I had already got an apartment in Texas to move to Texas to start working on The Chosen. I didn't have a job yet or anything set up. They didn't even know I existed.
And I was like, I've got good news for you, Danny. I work on The Chosen and I'm looking for PAs and you would be fantastic and I'd love to hire you.
As I'm packing up the following week to move, I get a call from Adam Drake, our first AD, and he says, after this story, I can't not hire you. You're hired.
So yeah, thank you.
That's pretty epic. That's a really, really cool story for sure.
Thank you, James Gunn, for giving us Danny.
First team starting to walk. Rebecca, can I get you on set to get a heck count? All right, first team! We're ready on set! Everyone but Yvonne and Alessandro.
Somebody?
And then after that, I let Adam know when everybody's on set and ready to go. And we start filming.
Allah messes around so much, dude.
Talking about Danny, and I don't know what to say about Danny other than that she's wonderful and the way she says.
First team, everyone, ready on set.
The guy right there in the shot right before this one, by the way, I'm not going to rewind because, like I said, I hate the player on the Chosen website, but the big black guy with the dreads, he's a bird vendor, basically, within the whipping scene, I believe, for the temple there.
Kind of gets you, puts a little spring in your step, gets you right back in the game. So, yeah, we're lucky to have her. Oh, she's right there. Oh.
I feel like God is still working in my life, and just the past few years, I feel more confident than I have before. And being here, I feel like I'm able to touch many lives and be a light that otherwise may not have been here. I don't know. But I feel like, I'm just following wherever God takes me, and I'm just kind of enjoying the ride as it goes.
Super, super cool. I love learning more about some of the crew that's involved, especially the 3 that we've seen so far. Mitch, Adam, and Danny are all, seems like, strong Christians who are really looking for what God wants them to do in their life. And so really, really interesting stuff there. I'm excited to have them as part of the project and to see what's going on there. But anyway, I thought that was cool. Lots of really cool behind the scenes stuff. I'm glad that we're getting back into the Chosen behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff looking forward to seeing from them coming up now that we're going to move to Texas after this week of the behind the scenes and seeing what they've been doing there, because there's some unanswered questions that I'd love to dive into a little bit more. So we'll see. Leave your comments below of what you have to say about this one, and we'll see you guys on the next one.